And here we are, live on the interwebs, doing some more level building today. Let's see, pop up my chat, put this one, I don't know, might as well keep the analytics up, why not? I don't know how long we're going to go for today compared to the last couple of weeks, because I'm hella tired. But I figured, you know what, let's just do it today anyway, because if I don't do it today, I'm going to keep procrastinating it, and I'm just going to either not do it this week, and then next week I haven't had the whole thing of doing it every week, and then it's never going to happen again, and we're all going to die. So here I am. We're going to, I don't actually know what we're going to do, to be entirely frank with you, because we have, just looking at this from like a bird's eye view, because that way it's somewhat easy to compare. Let's turn off the tutorial. That way it is somewhat easier to compare to the map that I have, and also these things should be in their corresponding levels, not in the persistent level. We'll fix that in a moment. We left off up at the top here last time, and that corresponds with this T-shaped hallway here. So let's just put them side by side for a moment here. So this thing over here is this, which leads into this room over here. So we need to put a room over here. And then we need to put one room over here, a boss room over here, and two more rooms over here. And then we have at least all of the rooms and all of the like connection between all of the doors fixed up. And then we can start actually like filling in some of the stuff in these levels. That being said, as I am streaming this right now, there's a little bit of an issue with like actually filling out the levels, at least as far as something doesn't make entirely sense here, does it? I'll get back to that in a moment. At least as far as like filling it with enemies and stuff goes, I have a bit of an issue, because as you might have seen in the community post, while I go investigate this little issue over here with a slightly faster camera, I've been reworking a bunch of my combat related code, because yeah, so this door is supposed to lead somewhere, which doesn't make physical sense, right? Not entirely sure what that's supposed to be leading into. But my combat code kept crashing the game because it was trying to load in assets on the fly. And sometimes those assets wouldn't load in time, especially on like just normal person CPU hardware. It would take too long to load in, and a couple of lines under where it actually started to get used sometimes would run without it being loaded into memory, which would cause a crash because all of the assets weren't loaded into memory yet. So I decided if I'm going to need to change things around anyway, I might as well rewrite everything using the game playability system, which is a headache and a half to implement. So I only have like half of that implemented at the moment. So my combat just straight up doesn't work. So I can't really do too much with that at the moment. Now, let's take a look at this room over here, because we've got, that's this room, which leads directly into the round room over here. But that also has a door that seemingly runs into nowhere. Apparently, I initially expected that to run into that room over there. Clearly it doesn't, and I actually don't think that this camera speed is very good when you're up close. I actually don't think that I necessarily need this door here to begin with. So let's just remove this door. Never mind. I put it there. We're not going to be using it apparently. The right amount of C++ is the amount that you feel comfortable with. I I know that's a bit of a cop-out answer, but I did make a short the other day. Let me open up a blueprint real quick. About something that would potentially help the bridge between working in only Blueprint to working in C++, because there is a plugin called Magic. I don't have it installed at the moment, never mind. But there is a plugin called Magic Nodes. I could have sworn I had it installed. So let's see if I just... Sure. Can I just... No, I need to restart the engine for that. We're not going to do that at the moment. But this is a plugin that adds in a node that lets you write C++ code in a single node and just reuse it. So you can make simple functions that you can reuse throughout your entire project. Just messing about with this plugin and trying to make simple functions, not like your entire game, in C++, if you're just getting into it, can be a very nice transitionary thing if you want to eventually move into C++ fully. What I would more so recommend if you're serious about moving to C++ long term is just making a small project like the C++ course that is still going up. I've finished recording it at this point. Just need to finish like publishing everything. What I made there is a simple twin stick shooter with just like the basic mechanics, movement, shooting, damaging enemies, that kind of stuff, right? Just doing that, something easy as that, so a twin stick shooter, or maybe let's just make this level here real quick. It could be something as easy as a simple platformer, or something you feel an affinity towards, but something that is small scale, just a very simple pitch, like it has this mechanic, and that's what I'm going to make. It doesn't need to be an entirely finished, polished up game. I do think that just jumping in that way is generally a great way of going about doing things for learning purposes. That's what I did with C++. That's what I did a couple of weeks back when I started learning more about network replication. I just made a fun little project, which was a tank game. Just driving around, shooting bullets with a tank. I needed to replicate spawning in the enemies. I needed to replicate the HP around. I needed to replicate some animation-related things around. And it's just something very small scale and very nice that you can use to familiarize yourself with some new techniques. And what knowledge is the best to know? That's really hard to answer, because no, I don't think that reading the documentation is a particularly good way to learn it, because Unreal's documentation kind of sucks. I would say following like a structured course. Hold on here a moment. Boss door room. Like I don't want to necessarily only pimp my own stuff, but I am, of course, in the process of uploading a whole C++ related course. But there's some Udemy courses as well. GameDev.tv has a course specifically for Unreal C++ that helped me out quite a lot. So that I can recommend as well. And I got a text, which I'm not going to read. I think that would be the best way to go about doing things, because you do really want to like understand some theoretical stuff and not just have slightly like fragmented knowledge of a bunch of different things. Because that's not going to really help you out at all. Level tools, that's what I want. I also, this is the first time we are working with my new geometry tools that I have made. So that will be very exciting. So we can, in theory, just copy and paste the rotation here. And then I can just drag this thing around. And we can start creating a floor even faster than with the cube grid tool. There we go. It's literally as easy as that. Let's see. Pull that back a little, pull it down one more, and it's pretty much how we go. Probably want it to be a little bit bigger than that, I imagine. Put it in the right folder. So one thing that I didn't think about when I made this one world aligned is that it also means that in rooms like this one, which the whole room is a little tilted, yeah, that's kind of an issue. Actually, maybe it's not an issue. Maybe it's fine. I'm gonna say it's fine because I don't know how I would fix it otherwise, to be honest with you. And I think this works well enough. So from here, and then we have this issue again, right? Because we have, but I can just do that, and that'll work. That works. Yeah, that just works. That's fine. Okay, cool. You are half a block offset, which is really annoying. Because now I need to change this to 50. And that's the bool location. That's not what I want to move. There we go. Maybe having that thing set at 50 in general isn't a bad idea to begin with. Yeah, the material for this is going to have to change, obviously. So let's just change this to, I don't know, some kind of rock material for now. That works for me. We'll probably want about the same height. Oh, this is definitely too small. This is definitely way too small. Let's make that a bit bigger. I think this feels a little bit more like it. Again, it's kind of tricky sometimes to judge how big things are or should be. But I think this is a pretty decent size. There's nothing really gonna happen in this room. It just has a door to the boss room, and that's pretty much it. But still, it shouldn't be absolutely tiny and just hold the door itself, because that feels, well, that feels like the room was put there to put a door in. And while that is definitely the case, I don't want it to feel like that. So let's see. How this feels. Of course, we want to use the material. Yeah, so this is a very like ugly tiling material, but this is temporary. Doesn't really matter. And then we want to move you ever so slightly into the room until, yeah, the blackness is visible. Maybe this is a little bit too big. Maybe it's a little bit too big. I also don't think that these things have collision, so I can't even like walk in and check. What I could maybe. What is the best way of going about doing this? This is the first time I'm like building an actual room with these new like blocking tools. And by and large, I quite like them. Also, they seem to really like line up very well as far as UVs go. Oh no, when you zoom in a little bit more, you can see the seams. I was going to say, is this a ruler line thing? Because it doesn't seem like it would be. Let's take a look at the Inkscape here. So this one literally only just like needs a door into the boss room. So based on my sketch, I would probably actually select all of these walls and see wherever the hell there it is and move it a little bit more in that direction. So we like come into this room here and then I didn't move this wall. That's not great. That said though, I probably just want to like snap them to there. So yeah, we come into this room and then we have this entire room leading up to that door over there. I think that works well. And then of course we put down a bigger door, so let's say twice the size, and of course as always I don't have the thing set to be locked. And for now that will more or less do. The only thing that I need to double check now is this a good scale for the room? Which, if I think I can use complex as simple collision and that will just work. I think that's how that works. So I've got an idea. And that is, this might not work very well, by the way. We're about to find out together. If I just open this streaming level and I put a light in here so I can actually see, that would be fantastic as well. I have no idea where I am. Oh, there we are. Okay. If I put a light in here so I can actually see something, which is very much a temporary light, I might add. I can just say, play from here, and that doesn't work. Okay. Why doesn't that work though is the question. That is because we have... What if I just put in a player start? I just need to be able to check this level size, and actually the player start is a pretty decent... Oh, this thing doesn't have collision. But it is a pretty decent representation of how big the player will be. So maybe this room ends up being a little too big anyway. Yeah, so this idea doesn't work. But I've got a second idea. I'm so full of ideas. That door is quite... Door? I mean, it is a door. I hope you mean that it's quite nice, in which case, thank you. It took me like 30 minutes to model, but I'm actually quite happy with it. If I just like literally put my player blueprints in here, will that do the thing that I needed to do? Auto possess player 0. Auto possess AI disabled. Will that just... Okay, we've got the collision issue. I mean, that's fair. It's 4 a.m. Language becomes problematic. I can't blame you for that one. Let's see. Can I, like... target mesh, like add collision or something like that? Oh, hold on. We simply can do... set static mesh collision from mesh, set dynamic mesh collision from mesh. Does this now add in collision to my dynamic mesh? I'm thinking it might. It does not. Okay. Who needs sleep? You're right. Sleep is for the weak. In that case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put in a blocking volume here. Which is not great, but it'll work for now. Just make this fucking enormous. I mean, it works. Doesn't it? Right? How's the scale here? Like, it takes me a good, like... what is that? 15 to 20 seconds to make it from one door to the other? That might be a little too long. I personally don't like using Blueprint for complex stuff either. I very much prefer more complex stuff in C++ over Blueprint. Well, Blueprint, it's quite nice still, actually. Because Blueprint does give you a like easier, quicker to change around way to like the code you make in C++, implementing that into like an actual level and the like final implementation of all that code, that is where Blueprint really comes in handy. It's you can use Blueprint if you wanted to for making an entire game, obviously. I mean, it's been done a lot. But the way I like to do it is just like write a shit ton of code in C++. Like, I don't know, what do we have? Like stats components. I think that's quite empty because that's just a parent component here. But making this code in C++, actually I've got an idea. My character is a fucking huge class. As makes sense, of course. I could probably do with... Did I fuck something up there? I think I fucked something up there. I don't know. I could probably do with splitting some of the functionality into components, but this is like an absolutely humongous class. Let's see, it's got about 800 lines. It's not that bad. But it still has some Blueprint related stuff too. Because if I go into its blueprints, like the ability system stuff here, this is mostly here for temporary reasons because I'm still tinkering around with that. And then things like adding in the UI and interacting with that UI, that I do through Blueprint. All that kind of good stuff. Okay, yeah, so I think this might be a little too big, honestly. Let's set you back to lit mode so I can, or unlit mode rather, so I can actually see what I'm doing. And then just move this whole deal in like this far. Might be a little too far. Something a little more like this. I do want to maintain a slightly rectangular shape though, so we're going to push in this wall as well. And then the character is going to start off over at this door. I do like how even like in editor the camera lag applies. There's no good reason for that, but it still does that. It's quite funny. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That seems good. That seems like a good distance. There's going to be a little decoration in here. There's not going to be much in the way of obstacles. It's going to be a save point in here, obviously. So it's going to be a little bit more filled out than it is right now. And we're going to get rid of the blocking for you and stuff. And once all that is in place, I think that room will feel filled out plenty enough. At least that's what I hope. This is, at the moment, a buggy mess, is what it is. But that's mostly because I'm rewriting a bunch of code. What it's going to be, though, that's a more interesting answer, is a action RPG. I need to turn on lit mode here. Fuck me. Probably should just do this in the persistent level, to be honest, because there I have like the, what was it called? The ambient lighting. The skylight setup, which helps a lot with seeing depth. There's actual lighting. This works for now. Good. Let's open up the persistent level again, because I don't like working inside the streaming levels themselves. At some point, there will be too many streaming levels in this persistent world to load at the same time. For now, though, I can manage, and we can turn on the lighting again and see that indeed this doesn't quite line up. Am I crazy, or is this thing not centered? Also, do people do keep texting me. Okay, yeah, I'm going to entirely ignore all that. I think this is centered, or is this centered? I can measure this, I know, but I won't. Okay, let's see, wait a second, this is 31, 6, 30, 28, that's too much math, I'm not gonna fucking do that. This door goes into more to the left? I can actually probably count these lines in the texture. So that's 4. You're right. You're entirely correct. You know what? Now that we're doing this anyway, let's just go into top perspective and fucking measure this. What is the key for this again? Oh, it's that. Okay. So that's about, what does that say, 1562? And that is about also 1562, and that seems to roughly, it needs to be a little more to the left even. Okay, huh. So 1562 is a little beyond beyond the edge there, and that's close enough. What I probably need to do is move it just 50 units. That should be pretty much centered now. I'm probably going to have to move that thing around anyway eventually, so it doesn't really matter right now. Well, it's good to have it roughly in place, I suppose, because otherwise... this is the hallway 2, right? Yeah, it's the hallway 2. I will admit, spending the time to like nudge it about a little bit, I do feel like this feels better. Once there's a little bit of decoration on both sides, it'll become more apparent whether or not it's centered enough. Like nobody, well, I shouldn't say nobody because some asshole will, obviously. But largely nobody's going to like measure to the pixel if it's centered. As long as it looks centered, I'm happy. So that room is now done. Hooray, that's as easily as that we can make a room. That's not the thing that I wanted to open. So that is this room, which initially I think I had a plan of making connected up to this hallway as well. And I still might, but I might not, I don't know. I don't think I will, actually, because what we did last time was make this room over here, where you have to break your way through a piece of breakable wall in order to get to like this hallway, and that would be then the only way to get into this like boss room, door room, the waiting room for the boss fight. And I think hooking that up right into this T-shaped hallway and making it like a plus-shaped hallway to hook these two up to each other kind of defeats the entire interesting thing that's going on with that breakable piece of wall over there. So I don't think we should connect those. Yeah, I think it's a good idea to keep those disconnected. So that means that we probably should move on to making this room over here. Or we could start making the boss room, but that intimidates me because I'm not entirely sure what we're going to do here yet. I have a general overview, but not much more than that. So we'll probably do that one last. For now, let's make the... I think this will be... Oh, wait a second. I was kind of like... When I started up the stream, I was thinking that we need this trial room to get a key to the boss, and this one still made. This one we already have at least the bones of. I was thinking I should make this one the combat one, this one the puzzle one, and then put some extra like optional combat here for grinding purposes. But I forgot I already have the combat trial. It's in the middle right here. So I don't need to make another one. What I need to do is I need to decide which one of these is the platforming one and which one of these is the puzzle one. And that changed my answer. Because I was going to make this one, or this one rather, the puzzle room, and this one a combat room. But if this one has both a way into a optional room that you can use for grinding. It also has a way into the red dungeon that is connected to. It also has a key. It has 3 interesting things that probably could do with some interesting like platforming puzzling. So I think this should be the platforming one, because we can like have the player platform around to get the key, but also if they want to take advantage of these 2 optional paths that they can take, that also will require a little bit of platforming input for them. And we can make it a little bit more difficult than the other platforming because it's entirely optional. So there's not a lot of things like tools we have at our disposal for platforming, because obviously I don't have an entire like platforming moveset for my character. This is not a Hat in Time. This is not Mario. I mean, if you want to have that kind of dungeon for grinding, like a special room for grinding, that's entirely up to you. I will rephrase, okay? This room will be entirely for slaughtering thousands upon thousands of monsters. So this will be a slaughterhouse. We'll get some real good beef out of here. I'll promise you that much. So what we'll do is I'll just make 2 squares and then we'll choose which one we might start putting things inside. Let's start with making this one. So that is, let's see, connected to the balcony thing. So that is, wait, is that connected to this one? I think it is. Yeah, so you come into here, you make your way. Oh, that even makes sense, because I didn't plan this, but this works out well enough. That even makes a certain amount of sense, right? Because you come into this room, and in order to get up to this door, you need to do like a... I mean, if you fail this jump, there's no hope for you in the universe. But technically speaking, this could be classified as platforming, is all I'm saying. So you do a little bit of platforming, you get up to this door over here, and then you come through into a room that is all about platforming. And then this room sends you all the way back over here, which can send you back into the round room, or, well, that's about it actually. Maybe this door needs to be up here, and this door, oh wait, no. And this door needs to be down there behind the wall, and I need to like redesign this quote-unquote maze, because that way we have this optional path like into a different dungeon through all of those like connected rooms, and the actual path into the mandatory like center room here. Yeah, let's do that first. So let's move this one around to here. And this is all, that's all part of the room, isn't it? Well, that's not great. Well, cube grid time it is. Because I started this one in cube grid mode, so I think we should stick with that for now. Which one is it? This is a new engine version, so everything looks different. Also, I don't... Fuck off. Didn't want to do that. I don't think I mentioned it before, but I did update to Unreal. That's... What the fuck is up with this alignment? Let's align to this door. Oh, that's still fucked, isn't it? What the hell is going on? Oh no, I don't like any of this. How is this aligned now? I don't understand. I legitimately have no idea how this... What? I suppose we can just change this by like 50 units and it will line back up, right? Oh, no, that's not how that works at all. Count me as thoroughly confused how this got disaligned. I mean, that is aligned enough, so it's just the Z, which, if I just say this minus 50... Oh, that's annoying. Is it because there's a decimal place here? If I just get rid of that decimal place altogether, will that line things up? It still does not. Well, this is all temporary stuff anyway. Let's just go with it, because I can't be fucked to figure this out right now. It's only a couple of pixels difference. It's not that big a deal. So, let's see. We probably want to extend this wall through here. And then get rid of this blocking thing, of course. Extend this wall up, maybe? Oh man, this is ugly. Don't mind the fact that it all looks like shit. This is all just temporary block out anyway. That doesn't make me feel much better though. Not at all. If we just remove this here, we put up a wall here. And extend that wall a little like this. Are you falling into a state of insanity, or am I just being hard to follow? Because I feel like it might be the latter. And then we come around like this and... I feel like we could do something interesting here as well, actually. Hold on. I have an idea. Because, of course, we need to clear out this wall over here. First and foremost, to make everything properly accessible. But then what we can do is we can make like a little bit of a wall through here. And then create a sort of improvised staircase which only works one way. So if you come at this from the top here, to take this like shortcut or different path really into the other dungeon, you can actually jump down here and probably get like some free experience, or, well, the game doesn't really have items, so I can't really put a special item here, but I can put something special in here. And then you can take this... hold on. And then you can take this staircase that only goes up, and you can get back into like the maze portion, but you... there might be a way to cheese this. But honestly, if you're putting in that much effort to cheese a jump like this, this gives this level a little bit more to it than just the one-dimensional follow along a path or walk along this balcony type thing. Well, most of what I'm doing here, luckily, I imagine isn't overly impacted by the engine itself. Like, I'm using this cube grid tool to work out. Can do something fun here as well, maybe, actually. I can lower this down a little bit and make... I don't know why you would ever do this. Unless... oh, and that would actually be quite a nice idea. If we make like a platform that goes up and down in here, that you can activate, so you like kind of unlock a shortcut. That could be kind of nice. So yeah, I'm using this cube grid tool, which I imagine Unity doesn't have a one-to-one corresponding thing to, maybe. I don't know, I do know that Unity has some like level and geometry building tools, but from what I used of it, it was a little lacking compared to all the things that Unreal offers to actually construct block meshes with and such. In the end, a lot of this is going to have to be replaced with like actual like static mesh assets and stuff like that. But for now, I think this is actually a good little detour that we had to change up this level, because now it has a little bit more interesting dimensionality to it. And honestly, like, not to like do my own horn here or anything, not at all. But this kind of gives me the feeling of, if you've ever played Kingdom Hearts 1, the library in Hollow Bastion. I mean, that one is much more complex and it has like a lot of moving parts to it. But this kind of gives me that feeling. Like, this feels a lot bigger than it actually is. Just like flying through it, right? Feels like quite a big room. But then once you start coming up here and you can walk over here, you see actually it's remarkably just very small. Just very efficient use of space. Yeah, I like this. Okay, so we were doing something entirely else before, wasn't it? Ah, yeah, Pro Build, that's what it's called. I worked with that a little bit. I did not really like it. Unreal has a lot more pre-built stuff that you can use. And the amazing thing is that everything that these tools provide you with, like this cube grid thing and just like adding in, saying, fuck it, I'm adding in a box here, and I want to say the width and the depth and the height of this box. I'm not actually going to do that now. All these tools that you have here, you also have available as nodes, or if you want to do it in C++ as functions, in the geometry scripting system as well. So you can use the exact same tools that you have here that are just pre-made for you. The way those are built up are just exposed to you as a developer to then use to make your own custom tools. And for me, I'm still working on making a lot of those. But that's, for instance, how I made this little tool over here, where I just have a corner point that I can move around, and that just effectively makes an even faster version of the Cube Grid tool with its own up and down sides, obviously. But then I have something a little bit more complex as well, like this wall constructor that I used in my original tutorial dungeon here, which also immediately like puts in these tiles. And I can use it to, if I find the windows here, I can say I want to add in a window. And it cuts out a little position in the wall and places in a window actor for me. And this one is a little bit more involved and a little bit more complex, but making tools like this is still very much pretty easy and possible. This one though did take me like an entire day to make because some things were not cooperating. I also have this very simple one, which is very much like that block builder that I showed, but instead of making a full block, it just makes a ramp. Honestly speaking, this should probably just be a bool toggle on that block builder. Doesn't need to be its own entire actor. And then we have this one, for instance, which I built just for tutorial purposes. An archway builder, so I can just move these 2 points around and it creates the archway. All that kind of stuff is pretty easily makeable. So while Unity is more designed for developers to make their own stuff, Unreal still exposes a lot of stuff for developers to make their own shit with. It's just if the stuff the engine offers you by default is good enough for your use case, you don't have to. That said, as your production and your game scales up, obviously you're going to have more and more and more need for your own custom-made stuff anyway. And at that point, the gap between the usefulness of having all those pre-made tools and assets and stuff that you can use, it becomes less and less relevant. But especially as an indie developer, it's great having all those pre-made things. Which is kind of why it's mind-blowing that, generally speaking, Unreal is seen as like the big AAA engine and Unity as the indie engine, because I honestly don't really see why. Yeah, no, there is definitely also things that are actually like a pain in the ass in Unreal compared to Unity. I haven't done it in either engine, but the way Unity actually allows you as a developer to like hook into the rendering pipeline and actually like pretty easily change around the way the rendering hold on a moment. Yeah. The way the rendering is actually like done with the scriptable render pipeline is amazing. I believe it's possible to also hook into the actual rendering pipeline for Unreal, but it's a lot more bothersome. Again, I haven't done it in either engine in actuality, so do take that with a grain of salt. But I believe that's a lot easier to do in... What am I doing again? I'm making a level. That's what I'm doing. I believe that's a lot easier to do in Unity. So that's definitely not Unreal is better at everything, but it does offer a lot of things. So that'll be 113. Platforming. I looked into it at some point because I wanted to make a more cel-shaded look and wanted to try to do it in the render pipeline itself rather than through post-processing, because it just kind of seems stupid to render something that is initially higher fidelity and then use post-processing to bring it back to a cel-shaded look. But I never got around to it, and then I changed to Unreal, and there I already have a post-processing thing for a cel shader, so I just use that. Not on this project though. I tried it on this project, it doesn't look great. Am I in my new level now? 113 platforming. I am. And let's again use our block builder. And I'm just going to copy over the rotation again. Snap you every 100 units. And I'll set you to... Oh, that's a very good question. I guess I'll just round these off into zeros. So that's 0, 0, 0. 5, 0, 0, 0. What the... I think I might have missed a 0 there, or added 1 too much. Yeah, I think I added 1 too much. There we go. It's probably a better way to do this, to be honest, but it worked. We have a floor now. I just need to remember to bake these two static meshes when I actually go walking around in them, because they, again, don't have collision. Yeah, there's plenty of people that are already like pre-made cel shaders, so like making your own cel shader at this point is kind of like pointless. That's fair enough. Still, it's nice to make your own stuff so you know how it works, and that's a huge argument for the way Unity does things. Is because you make everything yourself, you can reasonably expect that you as a developer will understand how everything works. And there is a real good point there. I'm just going to be straight up. That is a really good point. I wish you could just copy over the entire transformer of a object rather than only one of the vectors at a time. God damn it, that's not what I wanted to do. But this works, I suppose. Wait, why is the rotation... It's fine, it's fine. It spawns in rotated because it actually doesn't spawn in rotated, is the funny thing. It spawns in with a world rotation of 0, but along the way somewhere I started rotating these rooms around to like fit together a little bit better, just for my own personal sanity's sake. Like there's no actual like technical reason for doing that. That's just me wanting things to make physical sense. Both for like the intuitive feeling of the player, also for me constructing the levels, being able to see, okay, this leads to that, this leads to that. So that's mostly the reason that things are connected the way they are. But that also does come with the issue that things sometimes are rotated and stuff, and that's weird. I can read you. So that's kind of like hearing, but on the internet. Let's see. I think this room is going to be quite large. Like a little past that even. there's going to be a lot of platforming done here, and there's going to be a little bit of platforming complexity to all this as well. So this room being quite large would be a good thing. So let's put it over there. Yeah, the idea of copying the walls over instead of just placing down new ones every single time was a genius idea. So yeah, I'm still doing that, and I will probably keep doing that forever, because I honestly don't know how I didn't came up with that on my own. I should have. That's for damn sure. That's straight up just a good idea. And for these, I probably should just use the same static mesh as well. To be honest, but that's a little bit too bothersome for me right now, so I'm not going to do that. I really need to figure out how in the Lyra project they have a system where you have these dynamic meshes and you can just right click them, and you have an editor action which can swap them with the static mesh that is corresponding to it. So that way you can have the static meshes in the level, but you can still right click on that static mesh, swap it out for the dynamic mesh, change it around, bake to the static mesh and swap it back. So that way you don't have to be destructive with your workflow. I took a look at the blueprint that handles all that, and I kind of had a miniature panic attack and just closed it again because I didn't understand half of what was going on. But I do need to like just take a better look at that at some point. There's probably some like video going over all that, or some documentation somewhere going over all that. Though I generally do prefer video to go along with, because it's just easier to follow along than text for me. But that's very much a me issue. I don't know if this room is tall enough for platforming, so let's make it a little taller actually. I might, if we're going to do like level insides and not just blockouts today, which it looks like there's a good chance that we will. I might do this one because this one doesn't actually involve any combat, which again, my combat system is kind of like all over the fucking place at the moment. It barely works. Okay, so we enter through here. Then on that side, well, that makes spatial sense with that room as well. So on this side somewhere we have a door that will lead. I'm just going to like put it into a rough location. Yeah, I feel like this might be too big. Not gonna lie. Then again, platforming does take quite a bit of space, so who knows. Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. You did, I mean, didn't need to do that. But still, thank you very much. I mean, it's, I don't know what currency. Is that Australian dollars? It's 4 AM, so it's probably Australian dollars now that I think about it. Like, it's not much, you say, but it's like 10 Australian dollars more than is expected and especially required. So, very much appreciate it. I suppose it could have also, with like your time zone being New Zealand, money. Do they also use dollars in New Zealand? New Zealand dollars? Do they just use the Australian dollar? I don't know. That's probably on some level offensive to someone somewhere. Yeah, no, I probably should have figured that out as well earlier, because it does have literally a dollar sign in it. They use New Zealand dollars, okay. Kind of fucked that everything has to be called a dollar, isn't it? Like, you've got Canadian dollars and Australian dollars and New Zealand dollars apparently, and you've got like American dollars, which is the most fucked of all. I actually do think it's the strongest currency out of everything called a dollar, now that I think about it. Well, I wasn't so much afraid of offending New Zealand people, because they are generally pretty chill, as far as I understand. More so the association with Australian people. I understand there's a little bit of a rivalry between like New Zealand and Australia. But I don't know much about Australia because it's literally on the other side of the world. So I don't generally speak to a lot of Australian people, because unless they're, with all due respect, insane like you, being up at 4 a.m., they are asleep when I'm awake and the other way around. So, generally speaking, not really a part of the world that I get to interact with quite a lot. Time zones are bullshit anyway. That said though, imagine being named after a fruit. Australia is like America, but with less guns and more wildlife. That actually just sounds like a strictly better America. Not gonna lie to you. Your wildlife is a little bit more deadly than American wildlife too, though, right? It's maybe not ideal. Then again, there's quite a lot of things in America that can kill you as well, aside from the people living there. Because obviously the people living there, very, very capable of killing you. With all the guns. But like, they also have crocodiles, which I don't think we should underestimate. Not in the entirety of America, but it's a whole damn continent. So of course there's more than just crocodiles. But they also have like snakes and stuff, right? That gets me to 113 platform and the other way around. I think that makes sense, yeah. Like, what's the most dangerous American animal? Don't be that guy and say humans, because, I mean, you're correct. What's the most dangerous wild American animal? Don't say Texans. You would be okay, that's a little bit of a low joke. Not entirely incorrect still. Hold on, these things are just hanging about. They should definitely be in streaming level 2. There's also a whole Navmesh thing just hanging out in the persistent level. Why? They should all be in the combat tutorial. In order to do that, they must be turned on, apparently. That's much better. I'm just gonna keep this room empty for now, because I honestly don't have the focus to think about things, so I just want to make cubes. that's kind of what I want to do. You've never seen a snake, so there's not a lot of snakes like hanging about, and I suppose most of And this might be like very a stereotype and not correct, by the way. Let's just make that combat room over there, actually. I feel like this is going to be very stereotyped and not correct, but I would very much like you to correct me if I'm wrong, because I like to learn. I assume quite a big portion of Australians live in like decently large cities, because for the most part your country is not habitable for people. Don't copy that over, that's a stupid thing to do. So if most people live in like at least semi-notable cities, I imagine that kind of deters wildlife from getting in your way. I mean, I know that not every city is going to be like New York level, just fucking huge. But I'm Dutch, so like my concept of a big city is very tempered. Like when I go to Amsterdam, Amsterdam is fucking huge in my eyes. Like an insane level of why are so many people so close together. I also do live in a city, by the way, just not Amsterdam levels of a city. Anything that's actually like more densely populated and also bigger than a city like Amsterdam, again going back to New York as an example, just actually seems like insanity to me. There are just people that are living in like small communities where there's like just a couple hundred of them. Like, what is our range for like a town to a city? Is the question, right? Because you can definitely be a town with thousands of citizens, to be fair. But that still likely would just deter any wildlife or just like walking up to you and causing trouble. That being said, sometimes maybe not. Because I do believe that not in like big cities like Vancouver and stuff in Canada, but like there's an actual thing in Canada where people are like, yeah, bears just kind of come up to our houses. Even inside towns, like not if you live only if you live in the middle of nowhere, because of course it happens there, but also in just like towns. I imagine that in big cities it doesn't happen, but also because there's probably like protection against that in big cities, right? Okay, 30k people is not a lot. And 6,000 ish is that's a decent town. Let's call this combat grinding, something like that. I mean, I'm not entirely sure how big the city is I live in. Let me quickly look it up. About 150,000, it says. So, but I used to live in and I grew up in a town with like also about 35,000 people living there. So I know from experience that 30k is still quite a lot of people to be living in a town or small city. Wallaby? Is that how you pronounce it? I don't know. We do actually very fun little tangent there. I'm just going to copy over this wall, I think. That seems like a good idea. Very fun little tangent here. We do actually like. I don't know if it's still going on that name because every so often it changes the name. If there's any other Dutch people in here, you know what I'm going for. But we do actually have an amusement park named after that animal, so I do know what it is. Only for that reason as well, by the way. There's no other good reason for me to know anything about anything related to that. Also, have you seen that viral video going around of that kangaroo trying to drown that dude's dog? It's kind of funny to me that like 90% of the comments I see in the videos about that, people are freaked out about the kangaroo being so goddamn buff. And yeah, he's very buff, but also like that's pretty normal for kangaroos, I believe, right? I mean, you would know better than me. But most of the pictures I see of kangaroos, they are pretty fucking muscular. Because that's what wild animals look like. Like, have you ever seen a gorilla? For instance? It's not like, oh, this gorilla is particularly muscly. No, gorillas are just ripped as fuck. And to the best of my understanding, the same just goes for kangaroos in general. Most of them are just very bulky. I'm going to assume that this is a halfway decent size. Maybe. I don't know. Might not be. Oh, you don't even live on the... That's actually... That seems pretty... Like, that seems a good deal. As far as, like, being Australian goes. Is... being able to live off the mainland. So you don't have to worry about all of the fucking shit that can kill you. Still probably more dangerous than living here, gonna be real with you, because the most dangerous thing we've got here is in a very small parts, in some forests near the border with Germany, we've got wolves. Sometimes, if the wind is blowing the right way. It's more so that Germany has wolves, and sometimes they go over the border into the Netherlands. So technically, sometimes we have wolves, but saying the Netherlands has wolves is not very accurate for the most part. But technically speaking, I suppose that is the most dangerous wild animal we have. Aside from that, I think you have tigers. What? I didn't know that was a thing. Hold the fuck up. I didn't know there were tigers in Australia. Well, in zoos, but like wild tigers? Oh, you had. I misread that. I'm also kind of tired. They went extinct. Oh, is that the... I'm gonna look this up real quick. Tasmanian... tiger. No, that is... What the fuck is that? I mean, without being offensive to an extinct species, because that feels like a low blow, but I kind of feel like based on the pictures that I'm seeing of it, yeah, I understand that even other Tasmanian tigers didn't want to get anywhere near that to procreate. Let's just keep it at that. Because these things look fucking horrible. They actually look like cryptids. They straight up look like they came out of like some creepypasta shit. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I don't like these things. Get them away from me. Anybody watching on stream, by the way, maybe I should show you real quick. Like, these things look fucking just... Like, tell me that's not photoshopped, right? It looks super photoshopped. There's too many pictures for me to believe that it doesn't actually look like this. I mean, I'm sure it does, but it literally looks like somebody like photoshopped together a dog and a tiger. I suppose that's also kind of what a hyena is. Huh. Tasmanian Devil I do know, because there's a Looney Tunes character based on one, right? Honestly, and I know that we're supposed to be making levels here, but this is the dude. Yeah, right. I mean, honestly, these look like more realistic animals than the tigers. These just look like badgers, really. I mean, this one looked like a mean motherfucker, don't get me wrong. But they just look like angry badgers. Or very big rats. With very sharp teeth. But at least these look like animals. Like these fucking... Like... Hold on. Going back. These fucking things are just... Like... I'm glad they went extinct. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. So yeah, hello. We're talking about Australian animals while I'm supposed to be doing like level work, which is not really going very well for me at the moment. Is this big enough to just like fight in a little bit? I think it will be. What I need to do is I need to double back into this thing over here, and I need to quickly look up Unreal Dynamic Mesh Collision. Just real quick, see if there's anything that I can find. Set dynamic mesh collision from mesh. From that mesh and then onto this component. That's what we did before, but did I just do it in the wrong blueprint? Is that why it didn't work? Feels like that might be the case. Huh. Let's actually go into the starting room real quick. Which is somewhere over in the distance here. And just put down one of these blocks just to test. Because I want to know whether or not I can use this block builder here. Should change my level context to opening room. Block builder. It's the wrong one. It needs to be 0, 1. Starting room. There's a big difference between a starting room and an opening room. I am glad that it does give you the warning about that though. That you're about to put something into a level. Well, so that certainly doesn't have collision, does it? Okay, why not? Because by all accounts I think it should now, right? Unless there's any... No, there's no like branches here that would prevent that from executing. Yeah, mission failed spectacularly well. There's other people that are having this issue online, but there's not a lot of people. Can I just like add? For testing purposes, just adding box collision will do well enough, I suppose. But I would rather just have the mesh using collision. Is there nothing in here? Oh, now I'm just an idiot. Because if this doesn't have a value, this doesn't execute and the mesh doesn't get collision generated. So now the collision should work. It doesn't. It straight up still doesn't. I thought it was smart there for a second. They're trying to bring back those monstrosities, those Tasmanian tigers. They definitely should not. I did hear about an idea of bringing back the woolly mammoth into like Alaska or something. Life finds a way, yeah, but sometimes it shouldn't. Is the thing like those Tasmanian tigers? They don't look good, man. They don't look good. I don't want them. Let's see, do we have any geometry scripts, presets, dynamic mesh collision, set dynamic mesh from components? At least dodo birds look like a little derpy and fun, right? Set complex as simple collision. Maybe that's what I need to do. I seem to recall that that changed something at some point before, and it does! Oh my god, it has collision now! Okay, that means that I can test shit. That's great. Fantastic. I am starting to get to a point where this map is a little too large to just like be walking around and not make sure that everything is set up properly beforehand. So let me make sure everything is set up properly beforehand. This is 13 to 9. This is 9 to 13. For now, we're going to lower this. I mean, at least you managed to kill the Tasmanian tigers, because you didn't manage to kill off knockoff ostriches. You really had trouble with that, didn't you? The emu wars. It's quite sad that the government couldn't get rid of some birds. Which isn't to say that it's like in any way the people's fault, but it is funny. You can't deny that it's funny that the government of Australia had a war against fucking birds and they lost. Imagine losing a war to birds. and still expect to be taken seriously, like, politically, internationally. That's the funniest damn thing. There was two? I didn't know about the second Emu War. I know I shouldn't make this joke, but did you have Emu Hitler? Because it would be even funnier. Like, of course, World War II isn't funny. Let me like phrase that properly. But it would be even funnier if, like, the second Emu War mirrored World War II in that you didn't really get to win, right? I mean, in the end, the Allied forces won, but like Hitler kind of like killed himself, right? So kind of like a hollow victory. He killed himself due to pressure and stuff like that. But you would have preferred to take him captive. Would have kind of been funny if there was like an equivalent to that in the Emu Wars as well. That's all I'm saying. Thanks. I know about the first one. I've heard that story a million times, and I always laugh because it's the funniest fucking shit. But I didn't know there was a second one. That is fantastic. That is the best news you could have ever given me. That is actually fantastic. I mean, to be fair, would you rather fight an emu or a lake? Well, a sea, to be fair. Both. Because I think I would rather fight a body of water than a bird on steroids. Alright, let's Google this because I actually kind of want to see this. Emu war tank. I mean, I don't think these are the images that you expected me to see, but I'm going to look at them anyway because, again, the whole idea of having a war against these fucking derpy looking motherfuckers and losing twice. It's the best thing ever. Like, obviously this did... Wait a second. These aren't emus. This one is amazing though. Like, apparently they are pretty, like, intelligent and curious birds. They didn't look intelligent. But apparently they are. Anyway, I believe I was doing a thing. Oh look, I can actually deal damage to enemies. It only took me like 3 hours last night to to put in. Oh, I hate the gameplay ability system. It's amazing, but it's such a headache. Anyway, let's actually do a thing here. And that thing is manually set all my flags to being true. Probably should just make a hotkey for that, to be honest, for testing purposes. Knowing myself, I'm going to forget removing that in the actual game. You know what? Actually, let's just right now make a function for that. Just like key F. We'll get the game instance, cast to blueprints, game instance, and there we will make somewhere in here because things are not well organized. the game mode? Oh, game instance is right next to it. I'm just an idiot. You only killed 1,000, injured 4,500, which is kind of fucked up, right? The fact that you injured 4,500 wild animals and just left them because you couldn't actually like win the war. Let's see, we can make event enable all event flags. Yeah, so apparently these birds are just more or less bulletproof from what I understand, which is fucking crazy. So that should now allow me to skip through all the tutorial shit. In theory. I guess we're about to find out. It looks like it does. That's amazing. Still going to be a lot of walking involved here though, because obviously I'm an idiot. And I should build in a fast travel system, I think. Like, once you have been to a checkpoint, I think it should allow you to fast travel back to that checkpoint. But that's quite beyond the scale of what I'm doing here right now. And that also kind of fucks with the way I load in my levels. So, maybe I won't do that. I think I will have to, because as you can see right here, oh, that door definitely needs to be moved. As you can see right here, just walking through the tutorial to go up to one dungeon is quite a distance. And now think about the fact that there's going to be like 6 dungeons in total. I don't know either. Like, there's something wrong with the material for the floor in that it extrudes the wrong way. The black part should extrude down, not the tiles extrude up. So I'm clipping through the floor. The lighting, like when I go into here, of course the lighting is unfinished and stuff. But aside from that, I'm not entirely sure either. Like there is a little, like, it's a little flat. I'll give you that. There could be a little bit more contrast in the lighting at certain times. I'm trying to find a good balance between it not being too dark, but there still being enough contrast. Like right here, there's no lighting applied. This is just like the ambient skylight. That's all that we have here. So any other lighting in the levels themselves is added on top of this, and this might be a little too bright for like the base level brightness. Well, to be fair, this does look a lot better than my setup in Unity. I'll tell you that for free. Like it looked a lot worse when this game initially ran on Unity, but I am trying to a certain extent keep that more, like, not cell shaded. I tried cell shading this and didn't look good, but that somewhat more cartoony feel I do want to keep. I don't want it to look like very realistic or anything, for the most part. Anyway. But I do agree that it might be a little too flatly lit. I think I do need to like tinker around with it a little bit. Also, the player does have no shadow. You do make a good point. So maybe I also need a decal under the player for a shadow. That is actually a really good point. Hadn't thought about that yet. Okay, so this is a pretty decent sized room to add in a couple of baddies that you can just kill over and over and over again. I think that's pretty good, yeah. And this, once we add in some platforming to it, and assume that there's going to be like a little bit of platforming and then 3 separate parts through here, one up there, one to that one, and one to a place to pick up the key. I think that seems like a pretty good deal as well. As far as like the scale of that room goes, then we have this room over here, which again, if you come through here, you can pick up something nice over there, a little bit of extra experience or whatever. And then coming through here, we're back in the round room, right? Yes, we are. Is that really everything that we've made so far? I mean, I know that I've gotten very distracted a lot. But I feel like we made more than that. Oh, we also made the room for the load game. We also made the room for the boss door. So let's go check that out as well. Yeah, I think the player shadow might be part of it. I think I also just might need to turn down the ambient skylights. Also, I'm not supposed to come out of that door. Oh, I don't think this will work. Hold on. I don't think I can destroy this thing anymore with how my combat is set up now. Can I? I don't think I can. Yeah. That is... if I just use the mesh for the shadow, that means it will probably end up being like, let me check. That probably makes the shadow move around too much because all the lighting in the game is dynamic. And I think that will probably end up being a little too distracting, but I think I turned cast shadows just simply off. No, I did not. So then why don't they have a shadow is the question, isn't it? Let's just... I know, I don't care right now. All I want to see is if I put in a light in here. Can I please have my window... Where is it? Plays actors. Thank you very much. If I just put a point light like right... Oh yeah, he does have a shadow when the light is just bright enough. So if I turn off the skylights, you can see that it's quite dark everywhere. And still then I think the sky atmosphere... Do I have a directional light providing some lighting as well? Yeah, maybe I need to turn off the directional light. Maybe that is more of the issue. So if I turn that off and turn the skylight back on... Oh, that's not good. Yeah, that ain't it either, is it? But that does... That does feel better already as far as like... Okay, yeah, that's a little weird, the fact that everything is like all glowy, but I feel like that is... Yeah, that's just a little bit of a visual bug. The skylight might not cast any shadows. It might just also not be bright enough to cast shadows, but let's see. Skylight. It does not cast shadows. You're right. Oh, it doesn't. It's set to not cast shadows because otherwise the levels cast shadows on themselves. That is why I did that. Jesus Christ, why is it doing all that weird stuff? So I think I just need to, yeah. I'm pretty set at this point on the directional light just getting removed. And we'll keep the skylights, but that also does mean that going back into the tutorial here, this is likely going to be much darker now. But it also probably means that there's going to be more interaction with, like... Why doesn't it cast a shadow here? Is it because it's... Specifically, these lights also are set up to not cast shadows, because... And this is a little annoying. Probably need to just use light channels here, to be honest. But if they cast shadows, they start casting shadows of these little... These things. And I don't quite like the look of that either. But now if I walk under one of them, you see, it does have a shadow. But I don't know if I really like the dynamic shadow, necessarily. Maybe. Let's walk into the next room, where I have some more lighting set up as well. I think these do need to be brighter, now that they are the main lights of the scene. And they are also set to not cast shadows. I just have most of the things set to not casting shadows. I think that is the main issue here. But with these we're going to run into another issue as well, most likely. Oh no, they're all set to casting shadows, so they just need to be a little brighter. So let's set this to like 30. Not too bright, obviously. Still needs to be like a little moody. But it does need to make up a little bit for the lack of the skylights. I mean, the game is a prototype, to be fair. I mean, there is a little bit of a shadow now, it's just not very obvious. Oh, here it is a little bit more obvious. Especially now that I'm like not standing directly under a point light. And the shadows are a bit more... Like the shadows themselves are a bit softer here to begin with. Because the light sources are bigger. And the shadows, well, here it's not very subtle. But generally these shadows feel a lot more subtle. And I think that last light is just too bright as it is. I do think that it actually does look a little better. I'm going to have to re-examine all the lighting in all the levels as well now. The floor might be part of the issue. Let me actually just go into the floor material here and see if I can fix that, because the displacement here. Let's see, we need to 1 minus this. What is it? Minus x. X minus. Oh, can't you do that with texture object? That would be amazing. One minus. Can I not put a texture object into here? I can't. Oh, that sucks. But I can still just do this, right? This is probably not going to do what I wanted to do. Yeah, that didn't do what I wanted to do. Um, so if we set the center to 0, is that maybe? Can I subtract this? Just subtract? No, I can't do any math operations on a texture object output, which is fucked. The best thing I can do here is just putting it into Photoshop and inverting it there. You mean this one? No, that's the normal map. I don't really need a normal map for this, to be honest. This is my displacement map, which shouldn't be in its own texture to begin with. It should be in a combined texture, but it's not. So, where's the asset? Can I open the asset path from Unreal? Please tell me that I can. I don't think that I can. Well, let me try to find that real quick, because I have an idea where I saved it. It's probably in my assets folder here. Images, not in images, and models. No. Maybe items? Textures? Images. Not an image, I already tried that. It does give me a path to the source file, so I can figure it out. Hold on. Game Dev Cave. Let's make. I really need to migrate this all to an asset folder. Okay, tile floor. There we go. Which one am I using? Wait, none of these? What the fuck? I only have a blurry version of this. Like this. Which might look better, to be honest. It's not what I wanted, but let's try it anyway. Invert this. And re-import. Okay, and now we 1 minus this. And it needs to think about all that for a second, and then I did like the more harsh lines better, I think. And I'm still clipping through this shit. Why? How? Just for shits and giggles, let's just set the magnitude real high and see what that does. Yeah, that definitely... That definitely does not what I wanted to do. Never mind. Like, displacing things down is an issue. I remember now. Yeah, that's a real issue. Is there any reasonable way? Welcome to the Discord. I'm thinking, is there any reasonable way that I can do this? Like, I don't think I'm going to try this. Just multiplying by -1. It's not technically what the 1 minus node does. So there could be an argument to be made that. Okay, that's weird. So that's definitely not it. Can I set the center just to like -1 instead? No, it's clamping itself. Fucking. Huh. I don't think I want to. I can't feed it straight in. There's only impacts the UVs to make it water lined. I mean, I can show you what it does. Actually, a texture object can't go straight into a displacement pin. For that, I would need to use a texture sample. Suffice it to say, that's not the issue. The issue is that the displacement doesn't seem... You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to put this into the base color and see. Okay, so we definitely want this, because this is where... No, we don't want this actually, we want this. Can I set the magnitude to a negative number? That is a fantastic idea. I came up with it myself. No. Can I set you to -10? I cannot. My fucking god. I thought I had an idea there. Let me just Google, see if other people have run into this as well. Unreal displacement material down. Hold on, if I set the center to 1, will that do it? Is that what I need to do? Maybe that's what I need to do. Also, base color, yep, that's what we wanted. That might be what I need to do. Or that might just make the entire like displacement just not happen. Okay, that is what I needed to do. Fixed it. I don't know why I didn't think about that sooner, because that is actually like painfully obvious. I would like to apply and compile. Thank you. Is that possible? Please? Okay, that feels a little bit better. Then we have like the old shadow related stuff. It might have indeed been part of the shadow thing. Is also just the fact that these lights are very big, like they're a very big source, which means that they just cast incredibly soft shadows. I do actually like the shadows casting from here. I don't know, I still think that the shadows coming from these lights that are just like hanging in the middle of nowhere and not really like motivated anyway feel weird. Shadows coming from here does add quite a lot though. And the fact that everything is now dark enough to the point where the actual lights that I put down are very like visible, which again, the shadows in this map are just more subtle because the lights are bigger. That's just how lighting works. Not really that much I can reasonably do about that, except putting down more smaller lights. Like I could of course do that. I could just like make the lights smaller and put down more of them. Like just do this, but that would also then like tank my frame rate pretty quickly if I were to do this. And if they're smaller, they also don't need to be as intense, so they can go down a little in intensity. Like these, also somebody seems to be down out there. Like these lights are now smaller, so they should have more obvious shadows associated with them. You can definitely see more shadow there, and I do actually think that this does look somewhat better. It's a little better. Let's just walk through the rest of all the pre-existing dungeons, or levels rather, to see how the lack of a... Yeah, definitely, like, I need to put in some more dynamic lighting here now as well, because this now suddenly looks like very boring hallway. Also, I really should just enable all these flags. And these weird spots of purple on the walls, they don't work as well now that they contrast a lot more. No, the enemy definitely has a shadow. Like you probably can't see it due to, but it definitely has a shadow. I don't really think that is entirely true, to be fair. I don't think you do want everything to just be dynamic lighting and no lighting from the skybox. The skybox is like it's one of those kind of situations where being technically right doesn't really matter in an art form. Technically that light that you can see there, like when I'm hanging out here, there should be no lights here at all, because there's nothing here to produce that light. I didn't put any lights here, especially here as well, which makes me think I probably should set that thing to high, because that is where global illumination actually comes in through very, very well. And you can definitely see the massive different look that provides, which is also something worth considering is that I was playing on medium settings there. But things are quite intensive on the GPU here on high settings. But going back, I do like going into medium settings here because my PC doesn't like it, especially when I'm streaming. Going back to the whole skybox thing is, yeah, you there's no reason for like there to be light here, but that skybox light, that skylight, I mean, is more or less just to make sure that the darkest values aren't pure black. It's just to lift everything up a little bit in value, because pure black is just not a particularly nice thing to look at. Like if I turn off this skylight here, and we ignore that it does that weird little thing, this is what the environment looks like. And at that point, I'm going to need so many dynamic lights now suddenly that it's also not reasonable anymore to expect all of that to be dynamically lit with a frame rate that is even halfway workable. So, and since I'm using Lumen, I can't really very well bake lighting. That is one of the things that Lumen really needs to like work on, is have support for baked light as well as real-time lighting, because at the moment it is designed to only use real-time lighting, and that's quite intensive. But I can turn down the intensity on this quite a bit more, I think. Like if I put this down to it's maybe a little much. Again, it's this weird lighting bug, but I don't think making it a bit darker is still a good idea. Like this is already a lot better, but then again, taking into account what it looks like on high settings, it's gonna be even darker. Actually, it does bring the two closer together, which is a good thing. That is a good thing. What if I set it to epic? What does that look like? Back to medium. It's a little lighter in medium still. I'm not entirely sure on a technical level why that is. I'll be real with you. Or unreal with you, rather. Let's put these up a little higher as well. And then I think this one is still a bit on the bright side. Which is funny because it's not that bright, but just because it's yellow. This one, however, definitely needs to lose a little intensity. This one probably could do with a little lower intensity as well. Yeah, no, I know you probably shouldn't rely too much on it to like light up your entire game. I get that point, but at the same time, it kind of does function as like a base level of lighting on which you can like put the lighting you want, like for artistic purposes. I definitely had it too bright. I do think that this is better, because I also want to be able to have some rooms like just feel a bit darker, and with the level of brightness that I had before, I don't think that that really let's increase the source radius for these as well, maybe just put them up a little higher. With the level of brightness that I had the skylight at before, I do think that it took out a little too much contrast and made things a little too flat. So I do think that a little change there definitely was in order. This feels a lot better already as it is right now. I just don't like the hotspots here necessarily on the floor. Maybe these should be spotlights actually, not point lights. So especially this room is when I go into high, it suddenly casts so much more light down from up there. Which I think is this, it's just a material, right? Or is there also a light here? There's also a light here, but I don't think that light is particularly doing much at the moment. It's just there for like the fog effect. If I turn off this light, yeah, that doesn't do much. It's mostly this material, which is just way too fucking bright. So let's put that down to like 10. And it's fine if this is a little blue. This probably just needs to be a different material to begin with. Skylight material is a bad name for it. Opening room. Oh, you definitely are being useful. I do appreciate a little insight, little opinion here and there. This probably just also needs to be a little whiter. And then we can just set this to like 3, because all it needs to do is have a little bit of a blooming effect, and that's it. And then the light that goes with this. Increase the attenuation radius. Inner cone can be a little blue. Like a little blue isn't that bad. A tiny bit of blue usually looks more white than pure white to begin with. Feels a bit dark suddenly. I think the radius for that light does need to be smaller. I was doing something different before. I don't remember what it was, but this is now what we're doing. We're focusing on lighting, apparently. This is supposed to be outdoor lighting. So it's blue for a reason. Which is also why it's, like, when you look up to it, it's pure white, because it's so fucking bright compared to what's down here. So, but you're right. No, you are 100% right. Is the whole blue light thing is going to not turn up. I also feel like it's not centered. Look at it. Is it? Maybe it's not. From a certain angle, it doesn't look centered. Like, right now it doesn't look centered, but I think it is. And I don't know if there's much that we can actually do about that to begin with. Let's go to top perspective and wireframe just to check. My god, that's... Okay, first and foremost, that is not centered. But it's also not that far from being centered, because this is roughly centered. Fucking go to bed, it's almost morning for you. I'm also going to end off the stream soon. I do think that we had a bit of fun. We also did some stuff. Also, hello, welcome, Rex. I'm happy that in some way I seem to be somewhat inspiring, at least. Hopefully. This does seem, but that's also. Oh, hold on. That's also probably because distance feel. Allow. What is it called again? Oh, affect distance field lighting, but that's already turned off then, right? On these, because that makes them even darker. If I go back to medium settings, what does this look like? It does look so much lighter. I wonder what actually makes the difference there. Let's try to figure that out first. So is it just global illumination? It's just global illumination. There is a bit of an issue there, right? Because at this point, I have to kind of accept that the way I intend to look things, I need to either make them based on. But why doesn't it change now? Oh, it's because I said reflections. Okay, no, that makes sense. I have to accept that I either need to base like my the intention of how things should look based on medium, which is probably what more players are going to be able to run it on, or on high, which is kind of what I prefer because that is properly using global illumination. Well, the issue isn't necessarily in that the wall is that dark. I do think it is a little too dark potentially still. But I think indeed it is fine. It also like accentuates the lights in all of these little windows a little bit more, and I do like the look of that. So I think I will have to think about this a little bit more, obviously, because it's quite a big decision. But I think the way I'm going to go about this going forward is I'm going to do all my lighting related stuff with global illumination set to high. Because it's very clear that when you set global illumination to medium, it just doesn't use global illumination. It just turns it off. Like that seems fairly obvious if I compare these. Like between high and epic, some things do change. And of course, epic does look more accurate and stuff like that. But I think, yeah. I think putting down all my lighting based on what it looks like on high settings, then it will also look decent enough on medium settings. Not quite the way I intend things to look, but that'll be fine. So let's go through and do a little bit of lighting and then we'll wrap up here, I think, for today. That is the wrong light I'm manipulating, I think. It is. I kind of want this to feel like it is a somewhat natural gradient, so no big hotspots. That said though, there is a little bit of an empty spot there, which is also not what I want. I can just manually set this higher than 1000, right? Jesus Christ, that's a 0 too much. That connects well enough, and then that can kind of connect into that, I'm going closer up to this now. You can see this thing does have a shadow. It's quite tricky getting the intensity of all the lighting down correctly. Because at this point I've been looking at it a little too much to make a good informed decision about it. I also do like the fact that now that everything is a little darker, the save points stand out a little more. So that is also a nice little extra addition. This though, this needs to go. This was a decent way of doing things before. This does not work. We could try to do one of these and see if that works in any way, shape or form. We can just do this on global space, maybe. I do need to read up on how expensive. Let's just put the rotation for this to 0. How expensive emitted light from a material is. I can only imagine that it is more expensive than regular lighting. I don't know that for sure, of course. But it doesn't seem to make sense to me that would be cheaper to do. I do it quite a bit though. That is a good part of the reason that I ended up going with using global illumination, because I like that feature so much. The fact that you can make a material emissive and that it actually emits light into the world that gets cast onto other things is insanely valuable. It's not like it was an impossibility before, because of course you could add in an actual point light into an actor that goes on or off in sync with the material to fake that lighting. And in that regard, if you're comparing it to that, just having it emit from the material into the world, I imagine is cheaper than having a emissive material that's glowing and also has lighting. But I imagine that having emissive material is more expensive than having a light. But again, I do need to read up on that, so don't quote me on that. Also, this is in the wrong level. This is in the Spawner tutorial. This is where we're at right now. The only thing that I'm a little afraid of is if the flying enemies go up above this level now, they will just be dark. Well, no, they won't be, because there's a little bit of green lighting coming from the door and stuff. There's a way to hide the material, yet have the lighting it emits still be active in the player. That would be interesting. That would certainly be interesting to know how to do. because it could be very cool. But at that point, I say that, but at that point, no, that still could be cool. I was gonna say at that point just use a light, right? But you can still make interesting patterns with that. But then again, still, like, light functions are a thing. So you can just put that on a light still. With a light function that does a certain pattern based on a texture or whatever. So I actually don't know that that is necessarily all that relevant now I think about it. Maybe it's not. Make this a little less purple. Not everything has to be purple, for God's sake. There also needs to be just like some more torches on the walls and just like reasons for that to be lighting, right? Because all the lights I have right now is what's the word that I'm looking for again? Pretty non-diegetic. In that it just kind of hovers about and exists without any reason to. So there also needs to be just like a little bit more in the way of like art assets that imply lighting, which will make things a little easier on me when actually lighting up these areas. Let's look at the light map complexity, because I feel like I just made that a lot worse. Shall we? Where is it again? Buffer visualization? Probably on the lumen, right? No? Optimization. Light map complexity. Actually, it's not as bad. Okay, so this is really fucking bad. Okay. Probably should take a look at that, because usually red is kind of where you want to be like, it's a little dicey. Purple is a definite, yeah, you should look at that. This is just white. You don't want that. So definitely should look at into that, seeing if we can do anything about that. Let's go look at this level over here, because, well, this just doesn't have any light. This actually is a lot less like complex than I thought it would be. There's a couple of spots here where it's purple, but that's fine. And then this is also actually not that bad. I was expecting this to be a lot worse. Like a lot worse, but it's not. It's actually pretty decent. Like, this is horrendous. Like, actually horrendous. But we do need to do something about that. Which we can probably just do by selecting all of the lights here. And just making the attenuation radius a little lower. That probably does what it needs to do. Set that to like 1,000 each. 1,500 each. Just lower them a little. Yeah, that's a bit better. Like, it's still not amazing, but this is like, it's a little purple, fine, you know? It's like not the end of the world. But this is definitely a little bit better. And it still looks pretty good. Unreal does make multiplayer really easy. Sure, do drop the link to a video about emissive lighting. I am very, very interested to see that. But Unreal does make things really easy for multiplayer. I am kind of, depending on how quickly I pick up the things I'm learning right now, after the current like basics course for Unreal is finished and the C++ course are finished, I'm going to just upload both of those courses in one combined video, both of which are like 4 or 5 hours long. And then the Saturday uploads will just be somewhat general, normal tutorials that don't really fit into the courses, but still good general knowledge of the engine to have. And then probably in December, I'm going to start up the next course. And that might either be about the basics of multiplayer, gameplay replication, or it might be about the gameplay ability system that I'm learning right now. Fair warning in advance though, is the whole multiplayer thing is a lot easier to put into effect, like replication over the network and that kind of stuff, unless you have a service to run it over. It's not like that's going to just automatically magically work online. And that part of making it work online using Epic's online subsystem, which is amazing because it lets people connect through it with whatever account they have, be it PlayStation, be it Xbox, be it Steam, Epic Games themselves, Switch, whatever. It automatically also facilitates crossplay in that way. So it's a really powerful thing. But I'm still trying to figure out the online subsystem stuff regarding all that. But just multiplayer, as long as you're like on the same network, like in a LAN party kind of sense, is remarkably easy to accomplish. It's still more bothersome than making something single player. Obviously, it's always going to be. But Unreal definitely, like, this engine was made for a multiplayer game initially, right? Unreal Engine was initially built up and then developed and expanded for Unreal Tournament. And later on, much later on, like modern day, it still is mainly an engine that, at least in-house for Epic, is used for Fortnite. So it has always, from day one, been about making multiplayer shooters, and it still is about making multiplayer shooters for Epic. It just does a heck of a lot more now as well. But that does result in the multiplayer part of things, like setting that up, being quite easy and quite light on you as a developer. It's not overly difficult to set that up. It's daylight outside. You actual crazy person. Go to sleep. I mean, I like having you around, don't get me wrong. But go to sleep. I'll be live next week again. Or maybe later this week. Probably next week, because it's going to be quite a busy week for me. Let's just walk through this with this lighting. Well, I've been saying that I'm about to end the stream for like half an hour now, so good fucking luck with all that. I do quite like the way this dude looks under this much more ominous orange lighting. What I don't like is the fact that my GPU is absolutely shitting itself. Like, let's just for shits and giggles check my FPS. Look, I'm actually running at under 20 FPS now. Part of that is the fact that I'm playing in editor, I would like to note. Because the editor for Unreal itself is quite resource intensive. If I built this game, it wouldn't be that bad. Also, it's trying to run it at just like full resolution 4K, which definitely is not great for me either. There needs to be a little bit more dynamic stuff going on here with lighting. But to be fair, I probably shouldn't spend too much time on perfecting lighting right now, because I was probably going to... What the fuck? Where am I? Oh, there I am. Okay. There's going to be like more art assets that need to be added anyway, which will impact how I put the lighting down. So for now, I don't think I should be bothering like trying to perfect things too much in that regard. It does make this hallway a hell of a lot cooler, that now that you can really see like the color contrast between both paths. I am going to just look up that video still though, because that does sound very interesting. Oh yeah, and we have... Okay, but we do have an issue here, because this entire room is mostly lit through the global illumination thing. And if I turn this off... actually... that still works decently well. I really like this room. This was entirely by accident, but... if I go through... I'll just like new game this real quick and walk through. It takes a while to walk through this entire thing, which for me is annoying at this point, because I've walked through this entire thing more often than I walk through my home. But generally it's probably a good thing for scale. I do like the atmosphere a little bit better now that's a little darker. The YouTube compression probably doesn't like it as much. So yeah, this room here, which I need to do something about this camera as well, I know. As you solve the puzzle, I'll just manually reset the... Oh my god, this is way too dark. So yeah, I do need to. Maybe next time we'll do a stream that is mostly focused on lighting. I think that'll be fun. Event has happened. That is... Let's see. I think it's this one. Maybe not. Oh, it's 06, the one I need. Okay, hold on. If I set that to being false. And we go back into the game. I quite like the fact that this room, the lighting in it, is done through those panels. So if you look around, it's like a little orange, a little green. But as you go through this puzzle, the more wrong you are with this puzzle, the more red the lighting in the room becomes. And the closer you are to finishing this puzzle, which I just kind of fucked myself with, I think, because the solution to this puzzle was actually like laughably easy. Anyway, you get the point. You just saw what the room looked like when it was finished. It was all green. That wasn't intentional, but that actually... I quite like the way that worked out. It's one of those things that I probably wouldn't have thought of myself to like implement with an entire like system where it updates lights that are connected to this to actually cast light into the room. But just because the global illumination takes care of that for me, it just kind of worked out that way, and it's really fucking cool. And I'm really glad that it works out that way, because again, if you just come into this room when it's finished, it's all green, and if you somehow manage to fuck everything up, the entire room is red, which is a very clear indicator to the player that that's not what you're supposed to be doing. That said though, this is definitely too dark. We need to do a little thing about this. And this probably also is quite a bit too dark now. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what I'll do next time. I'm going to probably spend most of the next week coding, doing a lot of coding. So next time we can work through a little bit more lighting. I think that'll be a fun thing to do. But for now, I think I've been live for about almost 3 hours now. So it's time to call it a day, and I don't know when I'll be back. Probably either next week on Monday or Tuesday again. We'll see. And thanks for tuning in, everybody.